This is the song, I Am With You, and it's written from the perspective of the Lord talking to us. I see your hurt, I see your pain, I hear every time you call on my name. Every so-called misstep, every lonely road, you weren't meant to bear this load alone. I am with you, you can't see. I am with you, working for your victory. I'm always mighty, I always do right. I'm always wise, and you're always in my sight. I am with you, writing your story. It's for your good, and bringing me glory. You can believe, oh, it's true. I am with you. It's for my pleasure that you exist. I have a plan, oh, don't resist. Do it without you, but I don't want to, 'cause I enjoy working with you. You don't have to be alone. I am with you, you can't see. I am with you, working for your victory. I'm always mighty, I always do right. I'm always wise, and you're always in my sight. I am with you, writing your story. It's for your good, and bringing me glory. You can believe, oh, it's true. I am with you. I'll never leave you, I'll never forsake. I am steadfast, and the whole earth shakes. I am with you, even when you can't see. I am with you, working for your victory. I'm always mighty, I always do right. I'm always wise, and you're always in my sight. I am with you, writing your story. It's for your good, and bringing me glory. You can believe, oh, it's true. I am with you. Yes, I am with you. Well, I want to read you a couple of verses that go along with this. From the book of Matthew, one of the things Jesus said to his disciples right before he ascended back up to heaven. It's in Matthew chapter 28, and the last two verses here. Jesus says this: "Go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all that I have commanded you. And behold, I am with you always, to the end of the age." And then in the book of Hebrews, he writes this. Hebrews chapter 13, verses 5 and 6. "Keep your life free from the love of money, and be content with what you have. For He has said, I will never leave you nor forsake you. So we can confidently say, the Lord is my helper. I will not fear. What can man do to me? Now, why is it such a big deal that God is with us? Let's stop to consider that for a second. Who is God? He's the Holy One. The word holy means separate. In Isaiah 6, Isaiah says, Isaiah records that God is holy, holy, holy. In other words, he's separate, separate, separate. He's separate from us in three ways. First of all, he is set apart in power and sovereignty. Listen, there is no one more powerful or more sovereign than God. Secondly, he's set apart in knowledge and wisdom. There's no one more knowing or wise than God. And thirdly, he's set apart in goodness and love. There is no one more good or more loving than God. And those things show up in the chorus of the song, I am with you. Here's what happens. Whenever we go through trials, whenever we go through tough times, the book of Ephesians warns us that the enemy in our spiritual warfare sends flaming darts of doubt. And those darts are sent at the three areas of the holiness of God. Here's why. Your experience of joy is directly proportional to your image of God. Okay? Our experience of joy is directly proportional to our image of God. Who do you think God is? Listen, if you see God for who he is, all sovereign and powerful, all good and loving, all knowing and wise, then you can't help but be joyful whenever you know that God and you have peace with him because of what Jesus did for us on the cross. In fact, Jesus said in John that in light of the resurrection, you and I would have joy no one can take. So no one can take our joy. But the enemy seeks to trick us into giving it up by sending those flaming darts of doubt at the three areas of the holiness of God. If he can get us to doubt that God really is all-powerful and sovereign, or all-knowing and wise, or all good and loving, then we begin to have a warped image of God. And before too long, we don't really want to read his word, because if he's not who he says he is, why should I read this? Or we don't want to pray, because if he's not really who he says he is, then why should I talk to him? See what happens there? And sometimes there are things that may go on in a person's heart that they would never profess with their mouth, but it's going on. And so what happens is Jesus tells us in John that through the light of the resurrection, we can have joy that no one can take, because when you look at the resurrection, it shows you what God does. God is able to take this horrible event of the crucifixion and turn it upside down and show his sovereignty and power at work, to show his knowledge and wisdom at work, and to show his goodness and love at work. And that's what the resurrection proves. So those are some of the thoughts that would go along with the song, I Am With You. To realize that this God is who he says he is in his word. And it's this God that is with us, that never leaves us, that never forsakes us. And that's why we can have joy, even in the toughest of times, true joy that no one can take. We love you.